So anyways, what we're going to do here is we got enough quadrajets now. We're just going to leave this same manifold on, and we're going to try and get a good quadrajet out of one of the 4 that I've got now. First thing we got to do though, pretty simple stuff, but first thing I got to do is stab that distributor back in this hole down here. So we're going to do that, and I don't know if I'll make the 2 videos together, but if you guys saw, yeah, depending on what I do, all I got to do is line up the rotor with the notch that I cut right there. And then that'll bring the motor exactly back to where it was, which it was, when it was running good, it was running fine there, so I don't think I'll even bother to try and retime it. I'll just stick it back in where it was, call it good. So let's go ahead and get that done. I don't know if I got a decent place to set the camera. No, I really kind of don't. So I'm just going to stab it back in, and I'll show you guys what I got when I'm all said and done. Okay, we got the battery charger hooked up, carburetor's on, everything's hooked up, ready to go. I got the distributor on where I had it before. We're pretty close to it. So we should be ready to go. I primed up, and I primed up the carburetor. I filled the bowl. But the fuel should be damn near there anyways. So we're going to see what happens here. Everybody cross their fingers. Oh, no kidding. Shit, I didn't even pump it. You have got to be shitting me. Woo! We definitely like it. Oh, yeah. And it's idling on its own. Oh, I can't believe this. This is... Whew. That is going to be absolutely awesome if I can get this thing to run for a shit. That already sounds like it's running better, 10 times better than it was before. I suppose I better check for fuel leaks and such. Oh, that is just too cool. I see no fuel leaks. Oh, that is awesome. Worth every bit of 30 bucks. I run it a little bit and I warmed it up, and now we're going to tune it a little bit. Just make sure the carb's set right and everything else is working good. So you can see I've actually brought out my timing light this time. The last time I tuned up a motor, I did not use a timing light. What a timing light does is it sets the engine for what I would call the theoretical ideal timing, or the theoretical timing. What timing it with a vacuum gauge does is sets it up as an ideal timing. Now, no 2 engines, I don't care if they came out of the same assembly plant 2 minutes apart, you're never going to find 2 engines that will require the exact same circumstances to run. And that's why I usually use a vacuum gauge to tune on my motors, is because it gives you a more accurate reading of what the engine desires as far as, you know, timing or fuel mixture, etc., etc., etc. So, but this time I am actually going to appease some of my viewers here, I'm actually going to use a timing light. So, and I will use the vacuum gauge in order to set the carburetor, and the timing light set ignition timing. So we're going to fire it up here, and then we'll go from there. Out of gear, here goes. We'll pop it a couple times, clear it out. Clear it out there. Then we're going to point the timing light down there to my, and we're showing about 6 degrees, somewhere between 4 to 6 degrees. Now this engine theoretically should run at about 8. Depending on, and we don't really know for sure the origins of this motor, but it should run about 8. So what I'm going to do is, while I'm shining the timing light down there and watching for that mark to pass, I'm going to be turning that with my other hand. So I actually have to set my camera down here. And that's sitting at 8, and you probably heard the motor clean up a little bit. Now the first thing I'm going to do in order to make sure that nothing gets messed up is I am going to tighten down the distributor. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to set the carburetor. Well, actually the next thing we're going to do is unhook the timing light, because I've actually gotten a timing light wrapped up in a fan before, and it's not a pretty situation, especially at 75 bucks a pop. So let's go ahead and get the timing light out of here. Okay, so now the next logical step would be to set my carburetor. So I'm going to find a place where I can stick this, where it'll kind of stay, where I can watch it. Right there seems to be a nice spot. And then we're just going to tweak a little bit at a time until we find that optimal vacuum rate. Now we're going to go a quarter turn at a time on the carburetor. And that, actually the motor sounded a little bit more stuttery, so we're going to back it back up. Then we're going to go over to this side. If I can find the slot here to put my screwdriver in. And we're going to tighten this one up just a quarter. Motor gets a little stuttery, we'll open it back open a quarter. So then, next thing we're going to do, now since we've determined that closing it a quarter reduces condition, we're going to open it a quarter. Okay, so we got a quarter there, and we got a quarter there. Now you can actually see that the vacuum gauge has come up just a little bit. It was sitting right at 20 inches of vacuum. So we're going to go another quarter turn on each of these. And you can kind of hear the motor pull down. So I think that quarter turn that we gave it before was going to be about right. So we're going to go a quarter back and a quarter back. Now we're just going to go an 8 and see if we can clean it up just a little bit further. And I think it did. Yep, vacuum sitting right about the same. Now the other thing you can use a vacuum gauge for is you look at the vacuum gauge, and ideally you want it to sit right around anywhere between about 16 to 21 inches of vacuum. As soon as you dump the throttle, and you don't want that needle to move at all. If the needle moves, it means burnt valves or a leaky gasket or a head gasket or something along those lines. And there's many different variations. So we're going to just throttle it real hard, just like that. And what we want it to do is we want it to drop below 5, almost to 0. And then we want it to come up to about 22, 23, right in that area. So watch that closely as I wrap it. And that's exactly the kind of response that we want. We get that nice throttle response, it drops back down, it didn't stutter when we throttled it. So I am going to say, other than putting in a set of plugs that isn't gas valve, we got this thing pretty decent, which is going to tickle me absolutely pink. Hope you guys have learned something there, and yeah, we're good to go.